Can I have your attention, please? We'll be starting up shortly. Good evening and welcome to the Lowell Planning Board for Monday, February 4th, 2013. Before we start up, I'd like to just ask that we have a moment of silence for two young men who lived in Lowell most of their life who passed away within the last 2 weeks, 5 days apart from each other. The first one would be young Eddie Walsh III, young man who passed away at age 52 years of age. Young Ed grew up in Lowell, worked here for a long period of time, and graduated from Bates College as well as got his engineering and University of Mass in Lowell master's degree. His father was our Commissioner of Public Works for many, many years, and as a result of Mr. Walsh, the father as we'd call him, he was very instrumental in getting our soccer field done out by the Rourke Bridge. And most recently, young Ed was just before the planning board within the last 2 years, and he put together the development project that we approved, which was the loft projects at the Perkins Place here in Lowell, which is right next to the Songus Arena. As a result of his dedicated work on that project, he won the 2012 Paul Songus Award for Historic Preservation as a result of the loft project that we approved at the Perkins Place. He's survived by a wife, 3 step-children, his sister Deirdre, and his father, Edward Walsh II. So our condolences go out to he and his family for their great loss. Also, another young man who was born and raised in the city of Lowell his whole life was Ned Sheehy. Ned worked at the Janus Rink for many, many years, been employed there for a long period of time, and then worked for the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Management for many years. His great roots go into the city of Lowell. His father, Paul, was our past city manager, was also our past state senator, and Paul was an attorney in the worked in the Greater Lowell area, and his mother, Molly, had worked at the at Middlesex Community College for 25 years. She was actually there when the school opened, and she was an associate dean there. She retired just in January, but she's still working for the college. His family also has great roots in the in the neighborhood, in the city area. His older brother, Tim, who is a contractor for the Greater Lowell area. His sister, Maria, who was a lawyer for our city law department for 15 years, and she just transferred to take a job at the University of Lowell here. His sister, Ann, works for our school department, has been there for many, many, many years, and there's also his sister, Elizabeth, who's an assistant clerk at our Lowell Juvenile Court, been there for a long period of time. Ned had many nieces and nephews, and Ned was always the one who could tell a story, and my fond memories of Ned was, no matter how many times he told you a story, you'd always listen to it because he always changed the story. So our thoughts and prayers go out to both the Walsh family and the Sheehy family. And at this point in time, if you can join me for a moment of silence. Thank you very much. Moving along on our agenda tonight, we do have a public meeting for 1857, 1861, 1867, 1909, 1929, and 1939, and 1949, which is the Middlesex Street project, which is also known to all parties as the charter school. I'm not going to read the whole lengthy presentation. We had 2 long public hearings on this already in the past. One was both equivalent to almost 4 hours. And at the last meeting, at the request of the board, we continued it to have a peer review, which would be have a third party come in and look over the engineering for the traffic and the site plan. As a result of that, a motion was made to continue to tonight's meeting to have the results of that peer review. I did have the benefit of speaking with Attorney Elides about the project and indicated that they might be looking to have the matter continued so they could digest some more of the recommendations made by the peer review. So at this point in time, I'll turn it over to Council Elides.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, George C. Elides, Jr., 133 Market Street in Lowell. And yes, we need more time. And I know I said at the last meeting we had a time crunch, and we still do, believe me, when I tell you that I get constant calls from all the people involved here that if they're ever going to get this project started, they need time to get started, obviously, to build a school for September opening. On the other hand, Obviously, Mr. Frechette's point was well taken because we needed some more information that I think was helpful to the board. It certainly was helpful to us. As a result of it, we're going to, and fortunately through Aaron and Adam, some of the city officials, we're putting together a meeting this week of the 3 traffic engineers, the peer engineer, our engineer, and the city traffic engineer to address the issues that were mentioned in the report that was issued there. My own opinion is I think it's a good report because it points out some very serious things that have to be looked at. On the other hand, I obviously will advocate and take the position that it's a good report from the standpoint that it's in everybody's best interest for us to be able to address those particular issues, and that's what we intend to do. So based on that, simply put, I would just ask you, the next problem is the vacation schedule. The next meeting, as you're probably well aware, comes on theoretically 2 weeks from tonight, but that's the holiday. And from what I've been able to determine, a lot of people who are involved with the project from our standpoint, and probably a lot of the citizens of the city, that's a school vacation week as well. And so it certainly, even though time is a problem, it's also a problem for the people we have working on this as well. So at this point, I think I'm going to ask the board to put this over, not to the next meeting, which would be the 21st, but to the first meeting in March, which is, I think, the 4th, yeah. So that's my request, if that's amenable to the board, and I'd be glad to answer any questions I may have. I think we got word out to most of the people that we'd be seeking this continuance tonight, so hopefully we didn't inconvenience anybody along the way.
I know there was also something in the paper, I believe it was tonight, indicating that the matter was on our agenda and that the applicant requested a continuance, so I think that's probably why we have less people here this evening than the last 2 meetings.
Right.
So, go ahead, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to continue the public meeting to our meeting of March 4th.
I'll second the motion.
Motion made and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye?
Aye.
The motion is hereby approved. The matter is continued to March 4th. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Moving along, we have another matter on tonight. It's under our new business, which is 685 and 689 Lawrence Street. The Lowell Planning Board will hear request from a project proponent to discuss the project status for development for the project located at the above address. The project received site plan approval to raise a portion of the existing mill building located on site and to construct 24 residential units, 12 of which were to be the townhouse units along Andrew Street. The applicant is seeking approval to place a bond for the remaining work to be completed. May we hear the case for the applicant, please?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. James Flood, 549 Roger Street, Lowell, representing Highland Condominiums LLC and Diamond Business LLC. I have, Mr. Linehan, the original signed letter from the Lowell Fire and Savings Bank, if you'd like that.
Is that the copy that we have here? Yeah. Okay, okay, thank you.
I think we were here probably 3 months ago when we first discussed the situation, and since that time, there's been an appearance in front of the Board of Appeals, and the issue has been raised pertaining to this parking lot. So I've met with Mr. Frawley, I've met with the Lowell Fire and Savings Bank. We have obtained estimates for the completion of the work, and the bank is willing to post a savings account and the amount necessary to complete this work so that we can proceed further. I can remember doing this years ago when George Zaharoulis was the chairman, and the way that I recall it happening was the savings book would be posted in the name of the city of Lowell. When the work would be completed, then Aaron or Joe would go out and make sure it was completed. Then they would sign a withdrawal slip authorizing the release of those funds necessary to pay the person who completed the work, and then that would be paid. So, I mean, it'd be nice to be able to do the parking lot now, but as you all know, the weather's not conducive to it. So we thought if we could post the bonds, we could proceed further on this whole project.
Before we go any further, Alan, I know that we received comments from staff. Do you have any comments on that? It appeared that the main thing was that outstanding was that they just have to change some of the handicap parking layouts, which was indicated there was 2 handicap spaces are required. They only had 1 on the plan, and I think when I spoke with you at length the other day about tonight's meeting, you said there was no problem adding the other handicap entrance. That was basically easy to do.
That's correct. One of the small remaining, I don't know if it's small, but one of the easily addressed remaining items on the site plan, including landscape plan, was the placement and size of the handicap parking spaces. The parking space that provides van accessible, which is the second, or it's the one on the left, there's two handicap parking spaces on the parking aisle that's on the far right, is just a little short. It needs to have an 8-foot hatching width because it's got an angle, a radius on the end. It's not quite 8 feet, but that parking aisle thankfully has a little bit of room. So all that needs to be done is those parking spaces just need to be shifted up a couple feet. That will provide an adequate parking space on the top side of that aisle, and will provide both the 8-foot wide parking aisle and hatched offloading area. So that's the one thing as far as the landscape plan that we thought that needed to be addressed.
I think the other question I had with when we discussed was, it was just to talk about what type of plantings they were gonna be in there, and I think you and the applicant were talking about different ones, and you indicated that you could work out something for landscaping approval. Was there certain trees that they proposed that you were gonna double check on?
Correct.
I don't know if it's in your,
there's
but I remember we spoke on the phone about that.
Right, so tonight in the handout in the packets, it's Exhibit D is a list of the tree plantings that I believe the applicant took directly from a sketch plan that was created by the DPD design planner.
Okay.
And there is one coniferous tree along since the east parcel boundary side of the plan that you're looking at, that apparently the Mahoney, which is the location where they were gonna get the landscape material, had felt that wasn't a good species for that area. We can certainly work with the applicant in identifying a replacement. It's just a larger coniferous tree that's not quite like a shrub, like an arborvitae. It's something a little bit more substantial. But we can certainly identify something for the applicant or with the applicant that is along the same lines as what was proposed by the design planner.
So the estimate that we received tonight, I believe, it would cover the resurfacing in the parking lot, patchwork within the parking lot, striping of the parking lot, planters, trees, and the engineering, it appears to be, which is the itemized list. Is there anything else, Aaron, that comes to mind for Division of Planning and Development, or these are matters you feel would be appropriate to bring the site up to date?
So I mean, just from a general perspective, one of the conditions that was issued with the approval in '07 for this project was that the applicant or the petitioner work with DPT to come up with a landscape plan that meets the requirements of the zoning code. And this is something that we've worked with them to develop. As the board knows, there's an activity and use limitation on this property. So it's a challenge to actually dig into the soil. In fact, it needs to be capped with asphalt. There needs to be a pervious surface over it. So that, just to give you a little background, is the reasoning for the planters proposed in the parking lot, because it is placed above pervious surface. And we worked with the DPD design planner to identify species that would survive in that kind of environment. So it does meet the requirements, the parking, landscape within parking lot requirements of the zoning code, and as well as along the buffer areas and the edge of the parcels as well.
Is there anybody else here tonight who wants to speak in regards to this project? Anybody have any questions, concerns? No? Yes, sir. Just go to the podium if you would. Just give us your name and address for the record if you would. Thank you.
Chairman, members of the board, my name is Chad Banches, and I live at 29 Andrews Street, and I live in one of the townhouses as part of this project. Just one other item that wasn't mentioned is the screening of the dumpster. There needs to be a fence around the dumpster.
I think that's within the estimate of the planter. I think that's in there, they're gonna screen the dumpster too.
Which is a requirement anyways, which could be worked out with the landscaping plan, Aaron, with the
It is-
screener?
it
Yeah.
is in there.
It says install dumpster fence approximately 8 feet by 8 feet with gate. That's right in there.
Thank you for pointing that out, appreciate it. Okay. Just backing up a little bit for the savings account, I noticed by our regulations, there's several ways you can do it, you know, one by letter of credit, one by the savings book account. What I think we've done in the past a lot of times is refer it to the law department just to make sure whichever proposal you have meets their satisfaction.
Right.
And usually they sign back to us and say, this is acceptable or we want this. But I know our regulations, I know one time we want to restrict our regulations, but we couldn't too much because we have to comply with the state regulations.
I know we've done this in the
Yeah, I
past.
know
It
we
was
have.
many, many years ago. I figured that the city would like to have the cash
Yeah, I mean, I think the
instead of
savings
a,
book sometimes
instead of a letter of
is
credit.
more preferred than the letter of credit.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, as long as the city has a name on it, right?
Yeah, but, no, we'll work with the law department.
I mean, I know that's what we've done a lot of times to make sure that they look it over, and make sure it's properly before them, so. If no one else wants to be, I'll turn it over to the board members. Mr. Fischett, I'll start with
Mr.
you.
Chairman, if I may, just, Aaron, just some questions. I noticed on the paving estimate, the figures are good through the 2013 paving season. And from a DPD standpoint, what do you have planned as far as estimated time of completion? Whereas if the city has to complete the work, I mean, I've seen, you know, town of Tingsboro has actually been very diligent in putting escalator clauses in these so that, if it goes beyond a certain time, that you're adding to it. And then I'm assuming these costs, this is the cost it would be for the city to contract to do this. So, I mean, if you could elaborate on that, because obviously we don't want to run out beyond the 2013 paving season, then the figures here we have would not be any good, so.
So I think two questions there. The first one, which may be the easier to answer, is relative to the estimates, the costs that are in this letter. Handed out tonight are the actual exhibits that are referenced in the letter, and those exhibits are quotes from various contractors on each of the line items. I haven't had the chance to have the city engineer, who typically would review these things, to review the cost. That said, there's a couple things when the city actually implements this kind of work. It's more costly because we have to pay living wage or meet the living wage standards that's set by the state. So it costs more than a private contractor or a private developer to do this kind of work. And then with subdivision bonding and surety, for any work that the planning board has done, there's usually just a 20% contingency add-on to all work to cover some of that, some of other contingencies that we're not even aware of, or in the case a project takes a long time and there's inflation factored into that. I know off the top of the bat, just reviewing quickly the exhibits that were handed out, there's no kind of contingency element to these costs, at least that I could see. The second question that I think you have is a time frame. The planning board, you have the ability to assign a timeline for this. I know it's something that's allowed for subdivision control on, can be done for subdivisions. Although this isn't governed, this type of action isn't necessarily governed by subdivision control. I think it follows that setting up a surety or a bond following those guidelines would make sense. And so you could certainly provide a timeline for it. If work isn't completed by X date, the city will move forward in taking the funds to complete the project.
Thank you, Aaron. Counselor, just a question for you. When does your client intend to?
As soon as the asphalt plant's open, we're gonna get this work done.
Typically,
April 15th.
April
is
15th,
Usually,
so-
so, you know, we wanted to try to get in here
Sure.
in December because we had a late fall.
right, I'm aware of, yes, I know of some paving that took place in December, actually, yeah.
But it was too late, and I had sent a letter to Aaron, and I think he was on vacation when I sent it, so it couldn't happen. But we want to get it done. And
So if we, theoretically, if we made a contingent like May, end of May,
Hey, that's fine.
that would be fine.
Yeah.
And then, I guess, would and I don't know what the arrangement is with the Lowell 5, I would feel more comfortable if our city engineering department went through these numbers, just to make sure that,
I'll tell you right now that I had a hard time getting these funds out of the Lowell 5, because
Yeah.
there's been 2 units that have been sitting over there without occupancy permits for, I don't know how many months.
Right.
So, we want to get this thing moving, and Mr. Frawley wants to get it moving.
Sure.
And, I mean, we went out, we did all of this, and I don't think there's any doubt that he's gonna finish this job.
right. No, Council, as you know, I deal with other towns, and the engineers provide input, and there's an escalator clause in just about every one of these that I've seen, so, not selling
I
ourselves
don't-
short, so.
I mean, we're coming in, we're offering this.
I
There's
understand.
nothing in the decision about bonding. We want to do it.
Sure.
We're serious, and that's why we've done it. So
Sure.
we'd ask that you'd approve this and let us get going on this, moving further on this project.
Aaron, when did, well, of course, January 23rd, is that when you found out that this letter was coming, or we had numbers? This is the first time we've seen any numbers? Is that why the engineering department, city engineer didn't have a chance?
Hard
to-
numbers, and we, as Mr. Flood had indicated, we've had conversation about this as a solution for some time now,
Right.
going back in December, but this is the first time that we've had hard numbers, and he had mentioned that $50,000 was the range that they were looking at, but we
Right.
haven't had a chance to review it. I've reviewed most of the line items, and most of it looks good. The only two that I don't have a strong sense of, is it a adequate estimate, is the resurfacing piece, the first item, A. It's not that it isn't, I just don't have a strong sense of that. Most of the time, the estimates we get are based on tonnage. So I could usually, we just received a bond estimate for the Berkeley Street extension. If we had this line item based on 100 tons, we could kind of do a comparison and get a sense of that. The other one is the planters, because that's a fairly unique kind of landscape item, but the other ones look pretty accurate to me. The patchwork, the striping in the parking lot, striping's about 35 to 40 cents a linear foot. The trees, the line item that they have for trees is accurate from what we've been working with recently, and then the work of the engineer to kind of do up the as-built and the other kind of final plans is in line. Those are the only 2 line items that I don't have a strong sense on, but they seem to be within the realm. For instance, the Berkeley Ave extension, the top coat on that, which is 1.5 inches top coat, was about I think it was $10,000 for the street length in the cul-de-sac. So that,
Actually, if you look at the item up above, I guess resurfacing does give some of the, it is 1.5 inches top coat, area of 2,337 square yards, work to include entrance, I don't know if that helps from the engineering perspective, but.
I can't figure out the tonnage.
Yeah, I know. Okay. All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any of the board members have any questions?
I have just one.
Mr. Lockhart?
Is there any lighting plan for the parking lot area at all? I don't see anything indicated here.
There was.
Aaron,
I think there were lights, were there in that?
the lights are already installed. In fact, the islands, the 2 that are going to have the planters, are kind of built around the lighting.
oh,
The
all
lighting
right, it's
poles?
not shown here. I mean, it's kind of a large parking area, and it really,
Yeah, so there's at least
Exterior
3 right in the middle of the parking lot, and they're actually there right now. They've already been installed.
okay.
They kind of, part of the reason the shape of those planters are kind of like a U.
Yeah,
They
you
they
can
wrap
see
around
right
it.
here. Okay. And you'll be working with them to ensure that they comply with the landscaping requirement?
Correct, there's a
Right.
pretty specific landscape plan that's been identified with specific plant species and shrub and tree species. So it's pretty concrete and clear that, as Chairman Linehan had pointed out, there's a series of coniferous trees on the left side of the property. I think we had proposed Austrian pine. It sounds like those are problematic, so it's just a matter of identifying substitute species. Otherwise, it's pretty well defined and should be easy to work with the petitioner to ensure it's installed and planted correctly.
Okay, that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Gentleman?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I just want to understand, Aaron, logistically, the applicant seeking to approval for a bond, which I guess means they're going to give the city a certain amount of cash that we're going to hold in escrow in an account at the Lowell 5 for this work? Is that?
Typically, in this case, this would be very similar to a passbook account.
Okay.
The property owner, the petitioner, would be named, as well as the city, on the passbook account. The passbook would be handed over to us, where we would hold it, and any changes to that fund, whether it's a release or us taking action, we would have to sign off on that.
Okay.
I can endorse a release of that funds on behalf of the planning board, but that it would be essentially, we would be holding the passbook account. That would be the type, I would think that would be proposed.
That's what I proposed, that he would come, review it, make sure the work was done, then he would, if he's authorized to sign on behalf of the planning board, he would sign a release, and then those funds could be released directly to the guy that puts the paving in, or the person that supplies the
Okay.
landscaping. So they all get paid. We want them all to get paid.
Okay.
I just wanted to point out, it's one of the 4 types of surety that is authorized or specifically mentioned in subdivision control law. It's a
Okay.
fairly common.
And what are we giving in, I mean, that seems like a very reasonable thing to do in this case. What are we giving in return for that?
Well, as I understand, Mr. Flick, and correct me if I'm wrong, is requesting that the 2 remaining certificate of occupancies that are being held at the property, the 2 residential certificate of occupancies in the townhouses, be released now.
I see.
Rather than waiting until the spring when the work is completed.
And there are 2 others that still have to be complete, and they wouldn't be released until everyone else signs off.
Okay. And we're going to put a deadline of the end of May on getting the work done. And what happens if the work doesn't get done by the end of May?
Well, I mean, you could either put a date on, or we could come back in for, to review it if you want to. I mean, weather permitting, we're gonna get it done, trust me, we're gonna get it done, as soon as we can.
But legally, what happens to the money if the work isn't completed by the time
City of Lowell keeps it.
we all go on a vacation someplace?
Unfortunately, no. What we've done on these before, if they don't do the work, we can keep we keep the money, and we use the money to fix it ourselves.
Okay.
So usually what we've done,
There would
most of
be
these in the past is, we had a lot of department look them over.
Let me just
make sure
ask
that
Dave a
it's-
question.
It's satisfactory to them, so therefore, if they don't get the work done, we have the money to get the work done by someone else who thought.
Okay, sounds good.
But a lot of times, like I say, as Aaron said, the state regulates 4 different ways we can do it. And then when we had discussion years ago about how doing it, we tried to limit the ways we want it done instead, and we were told legally, but a lot of departments, no, you have to do it by the way the subdivision control law says. But the idea is putting the money up is, if the work isn't done, then we can take the money out of here to have an independent contractor go out and do it ourselves.
Very good.
So,
All right.
But at least with the money up, it gives us more satisfaction of control. And then we'll still be holding 2 in the apartment, Tom?
Yeah,
We're
there's
holding
2 more, there's 2 more.
So we'd have those to hold as well as the money for the releases.
All right, sounds
So
like
give them
a-
incentive to get it done, so.
Mr. Chairman, just Mr. General, my concern with that is if, that's why are these numbers reliable, so that if the city does have to do that, do we have the funds to complete it?
Sure.
And I believe it is, what's being asked, we would release the occupancy permits on the other 2 units, so we don't have them.
But there'd be 2 left, there's a total of 4, right?
No, I think that,
There's 4.
is there 4?
There's 4.
We're looking for release on 2 now.
2.
And
that
then
have
we'd
been-
still hold the balance of the other 2.
Yeah, there's been sign-offs on everyone on 2 of them for many months, right, Aaron?
Correct, so there's 2 units that have been constructed, and other than receiving the final permit from the building department, which is the certificate of occupancy, they could be sold or rented.
Sure.
And my understanding, there's 2 other units that still need additional work, but I don't know if they're requesting that those be released as well, or?
Not until everything's done.
Okay.
which is
Okay,
gonna
so
take
it's
some
just the
time.
2, all right.
Okay.
It'll take some time to do.
We'd have the 2 plus the passport.
Yeah.
As well.
Yeah.
The only question I would have is, the time-wise, obviously, I know you want to get it done soon, whether we want to give you a quick date in, May, or do you want to give you till the end of June, depending on, what type of spring we end up having, who knows?
Well, if the groundhog was right, we might be able to get it done sooner, and I hope, but,
But obviously, if you're thinking, this is February, you're talking about 4 to 5 months tops. 3 months, 4 months would be into, the summer. So obviously, if they want to give you a longer period of time, I have no problem with that. I think whatever's within a reasonable period of time. If not, you have to come back before us anyway. So,
Yeah.
Whether it was May or June or the end of June, I have no problems either way with that, depending on what the board members have. It's a short period of time, you think of,
Really? Yeah.
It's not like you're looking, I know you want to get it done quick, and obviously, the board would like to see it resolved quickly.
as soon as, we want
Sure.
to get it done
The
as soon as
people
we
down here
can,
as
so
well,
everybody
kinda
does
quick.
too.
So the sooner the better, but.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with the end of June. It just, we want to make sure it gets done as soon as possible. As the residents have pointed out, it's a bad situation as it exists now, and it's overdue. So I don't have a problem going to the end of June to alleviate any potential weather issues that might further, push back the construction. But if the weather turns good in March, I hope that it would be done sooner than that.
That's what we want to do, we really do.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I know, Joe and Bob, I know you weren't on the board at the point in time. You have any questions at all? on that?
I do, but because I wasn't on the board at the time, I am not entirely clear on the action that the board is supposed to take tonight. We don't know, the planning board isn't the body that issues a certificate of occupancy. Was it written into the original permit that we could hold them?
Any
similar-
conditions that we put on a project, they cannot give the certificate of occupancy until they've satisfied the condition with planning and development.
And so what action are they seeking from us?
So, number one, they want us to see if we will accept the modification as they brought in by holding the bond, and to complete this further work, we'd release 2 of the units that are being held, and then they would come back in, and then if the work wasn't done, then we would keep the money. So basically, it is to approve a condition that was approved by the board back, I think it was '07, I believe. Which was to work with the landscape and plan, with Division of Plan and Development, which they said they're willing to do, and then to have the bond accepted, passport accepted by the city of Lowell to make sure if we have the funds if the applicant can complete the job. So it'd be to make sure that hopefully they complete it. They came in, they had it, then they came in after a period of time. I think they were stuck like a lot of people with the financial crunch, with builders and everything else. As a result, even the state recognized it and extended their time period, like everybody else got. So when they came back before, we told them we wanted certain things to be done. I think that was back during the summer. So as a result of the last meeting, I think, basically, we were telling them that, we wanted it to surface parking. They asked us to release units back then, and the board said, no, we want to see more work done. So as a result, it appears this is a result of that. So I know Aaron said they've talked with them at length in regards to it. And that's what they're here for, is to release those lots, and hopefully we accept the savings book and the condition that they complete the landscaping plan and have the work done, and hopefully have it done in a timely manner. And then that would satisfy the requirements of what we put on the conditional improvement when the project was fully accepted. So once, if we have any conditions, they have to check with plan and development, make sure those conditions are complete before they get the occupancy permit. Correct, Aaron? They can't get that permit till they check with, to make sure that all the conditions that we've imposed have been complete.
That's correct.
So it
So
holds them up.
that's correct. The process of a site plan approval or a special plan approval, special permit approval, when there are conditions issued with that, the certificate of occupancies or sometimes the building permit are held until those have been addressed. So that's why those actually 4 units have not been issued their final COs. So what this request generally is to allow the bond, to allow the acceptance of a bond so that 2 of the certificate of occupancies may be released in the short term because the landscape work can't be completed during the winter time. And that's something that the planning board is able to accept as a process. That's a tool that can be used.
So in order to continue to be able to hold the last 2 certificate of occupancy permits, this board needs to take an action. We can't take an action tonight that is final, that declares the project to be completely in accordance with the permit. Otherwise, they would be able to acquire all 4 of the certificates of occupancy.
They could ask us to release all 4. Chances are we probably wouldn't until the remaining work is done. So at this point, if we released the two, put the money up front to complete the whole work, and then once they complete the work, they'd come back, we could satisfy the savings book, and then release the other two if need be. If not, we still have the other two to be held, and we have the money in the savings account to have the work done, completed, so.
Right, and I follow conceptually how that works. I just, is it logistically possible for us to, we'll be issuing some sort of statement tonight, taking some action declaring that the project is partially in compliance, sufficient to release two of the certificate of occupancy permits, but we are not taking, and we should not take an action saying that it is fully in compliance. Okay.
But these things still have to be completed. Bob, you have any questions?
I think we're relatively protected if we have the two units.
Yeah, and plus, and the money? Yeah. Anybody else have any further questions? If not, we could have a motion.
I had one more substantive point to bring up about the landscaping plan. The landscaping plan being discussed in DPD. As I've probably made clear at this point, I am very supportive of street trees. Looking at this landscaping plan, I noticed that there aren't trees planted along the Andrews Street right-of-way, and for the most part, that is not, that's because it wouldn't be possible. But it does look to me like there is sufficient room at that, at the corner, right next to the one-way exit in between the parking spaces and the Andrews Street right-of-way, where it might be possible to put in one street tree. I'm not sure that the board needs to take any action on that one way or the other. I would just like to draw staff's attention to that, as they do have the final sign-off on the landscaping plan.
I think we addressed part of that when it first came before us, when we gave the conditional approval with the landscaping, if I remember correctly, back in '07?
Yeah, this is, the landscape plan was generally approved at that time. The part that was put to the DPD to kind of finalize with the applicant at the time was the landscaping in the parking lot, so behind the building. I believe to address your specific issue, though, I think that was brought up and there was a concern raised at the time about sight distance for cars exiting onto Andrew Street.
It comes up next to the units.
I think we had some input from the neighbors on that at that point, too.
It's possible, this is going back a ways, but my review of it is that, and I can see that the likely concern was that putting a street tree there could cause a problem with sight distance pulling out of that, because it's a pretty tight driveway, and the building is, it's, wherever we can fit them, we like to, but I think it was a challenging site for that.
But I can see with the curvature of the street as somebody is parked there, it curves
That little
back
bend there that
beyond
goes
where
towards
the,
Andrew Street, right? Yeah.
and I can see it, right. Okay.
Any other further questions? If not, what's the wish of the body?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the request for the bond subject to review of the law department and the work to be completed by June 30th. And I'm going to phrase this properly, but recognizing that until the work is completed, the project will not be considered complete. Therefore, the two remaining units will not be released until the full completion of the work. That has been recognized in the bond.
Second that.
And the applicant to continue to work with DPD finalizing the landscaping plan.
I'll second that, Mr. Chairman.
Motion is made and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes yes. I think we're all set. Good luck.
Thank you
Wish
very
well.
much.
Hopefully you see everything completed in the near future. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Highly weather dependent.
Moving along, we have old business. I don't think anything in our packet. Notices from budding towns. I don't believe we have anything in there. ZBA notices, Aaron, did we get those? I didn't see them in my packet this time.
Nothing came in, but I did want to hand out agenda.
Only thing I do know is they did have the charter school on for the 25th.
That is correct.
So I
and
think They might be looking for continuance on that.
I believe we received correspondence today where they're going to continue to the March 11th meeting.
Yeah, so I knew that was gonna be on their agenda for that meeting.
Excuse me.
While you're handing those out, if I may, did any of the board members have any updates in regards to the boards that they respectively sit on? Any updates or anything?
No, I have none.
Question on him about historic on something last meeting? Something that, when it went before the storm. Oh, was it the Red Cross coming?
Yes, absolutely, yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just wanting to ask Mr. Lockhart, because the Red Cross project came before us at the last meeting, and I know, Mr. Lockhart, I believe you weren't here.
Up Pawtucket Street.
Yeah, the question was, did they go before this historic board regarding the project, or, I don't know if it required them to go before you, or at the very least, did they get some input from the historic board?
Boy, it hasn't, it was quite a while ago if they did. I don't recall in the past year that they have come
Okay, because they had recent,
to us.
based on our comments regarding the garage that was in the rear of the building, that was what we were reviewing, was a proposed treatment of the facade, which we've asked them to go back and rework, and that's what we're curious if it had gone before. So obviously it hasn't recently.
No,
Okay,
it has
all
not
right.
recently.
Thank you.
I didn't.
Then, Mr. Chairman, I do have I guess a question to DP, to Aaron, is just a clarification for what is going before the city council tomorrow night relative to public hearings. Saw on the agenda the Bigelow Street rezone, but little concerned about the marijuana, whatever, distribution center, treatment center. We had a draft come before us, and we really sent it back to be reworked, but I thought I saw it on the agenda for the city council. I'm just curious to get a clarification on that.
So what the city council received is basically the planning board's recommendation that stated that the amendment as drafted not be enacted.
Okay.
And we listed out the findings, and, definitely send you the draft that was sent out, but identified all the findings that were raised during that meeting as to why it should not be enacted, and included some of the recommendations, some of them specific, such as the extending the dimensional prohibition to 1,000 feet from schools, some specific recommendations related to that, and then also looking at some kind of more general or more, I don't want to say theoretical, but larger picture recommendations, like looking at overlay zoning districts, or actually looking at land industrial. So there's, in that, it does two things. The recommendation recommended, as it's been proposed, it not be enacted, and then suggests that they look at those, it was 4 specific items that was recommended, so.
But thank you for the clarification.
Yeah,
I
no
saw it on
problem.
the agenda, and I was a little concerned as to
Yeah.
what was.
Yeah, it's already scheduled for the public hearing. How they act on that, they have a number of options, as you probably know. They could approve it, they could send it back to be redone, or send it to zoning subcommittee with those, and other recommendations to kind of look at a little bit more detail.
The handout you gave us, is this for the next meeting or for?
This is for the zoning board meeting coming up
On the 25th.
next Monday.
Oh, yeah.
And I thought this would be the one agenda item that the board might want to review and provide some comment on. The other one is a signage. It's a signage item which typically is referred to the DPD design planner, so I didn't think you'd be concerned too much about that. The other one has to do with a special permit to extend an existing non-conforming use on an Industrial Ave East for Transgas. They'd like to put in a new pumping station for their truck terminal there. It's a natural gas pumping station. So this item is a property in the corner of Andover and Holbrook, where they're seeking a variance for the lot area per dwelling unit, as well as minimum lot size for a single family. It's in the SSF district. As you know, the minimum lot area is 10,000 square feet. This is approximately 8,000 square feet as they proposed it. And the other element to this project, which I think is a little bit unique, is it is right on the boundary of the neighborhood historic district that is on Andover Street. So if you had one parcel into town, that's actually in the historic district. So we felt from a department perspective that it had a little bit more, the neighborhood character consideration was a little bit more heightened. Although it's not in the district, that transition should be something that should be considered outside of just the variance request.
And which way does that tend to cut? Is the historic area a little bit more amenable to slightly smaller lots than our suburban neighborhoods, or a little bit less amenable?
I can't really speak for the historic board, honestly, on this one. I think it's more about the character of the building and looking at the building in its context. However, in this case, even if it's touching a parcel that's in the district, there's no jurisdiction for the historic board to act on this project. However, we felt that because it's right next to it, it's worth some additional consideration
Yeah, that's good. But, yeah.
as a transitional piece, at the very least, into the city.
Mr. Chairman, this comes back to, I think something I have an issue with constantly is that, if I'm reading this correctly, and of course we're just getting it this evening, but this is a self-inflicted hardship. I just think that's the wrong, that's not what a variance is meant to address. And I just, on the surface as to what is being proposed here, again, you're creating your own hardship and then you're asking for a variance to do so. So I just, I would, anything that comes before a zoning board of appeals, my recommendation would always be on a self-inflicted hardship. It would be a denial. It's not like we're taking an existing lot, trying to do something with it.
It's usually a problem with the land.
Right, exactly. And this is, again, I mean, technically, it is not the definition of a hardship for a variance.
Right.
You know, if a butter wanted to appeal that, if it was approved, I suspect they would win. So, but that's, again, as I read this, and I think that's something that should be strictly adhered to across the city, in my opinion. But
I mean, I have some concerns, exactly what Mr. Fischett said. I mean, you have one legally sized lot, which is 17,191 square feet. I mean, if you look on the, part of it's on, if you're facing lot 2, they're saying it's Holbrook, but, I mean, it all depends where they put the front door, because it's on the Andover Street as well, it's a corner lot, therefore need frontage on both streets as well. I mean, they have 17,000, and now they want to make 2 lots to be undersized, one being 8845 for lot 1, and then for lot 2, want to make it 8,346. I know not too far from there, one we had on Garden Road, that came in before us with over 9,000 3 times, and 3 times it was all turned down for the exact same reason. They tried to divide it up and said, you know, most people who buy into the single-family residence with the SSF buy in so they have a 10,000 square foot lot, and hopefully the neighbors will have the same. So I think you're making one legal lot into 2 undersized lot. I mean, I agree basically what Jerry's saying is, and I don't know where the hardship is, you slice your lot up and say, I have one legal-sized lot, but I want 2 illegals. I mean, I want to slice it up. I mean, I know you can talk about family members and everything else as it is, but then again, you can always just turn around and sell it regardless of the family members. But, so I mean, the fact of taking one legal good-sized lot, I mean, 17,000, there's a lot of lots in Belvedere that are 17,000 or bigger, so.
My experience is that the day after they get approval, they'll flip the lot to a builder.
Any other comments, or anyone might make a motion?
I agree with that evaluation.
I make a Mr. Chairman, I make a motion, make a motion to deny the applicant.
I'll second the motion.
For the recommendation for denial due to the fact that it is currently a legal lot, and by cutting it up and turning it into 2 illegal lots in the the SSF zone.
Correct, yeah, and I would frame it in the sense, denied based on the applicant creating their own hardship.
Motion's made and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes yes. Any opposition? Moving along. Move on to any of the board members have any other follow-up questions or concerns or updates? If not, we can entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Motion's moving to second. All in favor, say aye.
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 We have adjourned. Good night, and thank you, everyone.